thinking about the River Bann, the first fish people might think of is the salmon. But while the Bann might be a good salmon river, it could at one time justifiably claim as an eel fishery to be the best in the world. While the eel might seem familiar, it's one of the most mysterious creatures we have. Every school kid knows that they're born in the Sargasso Sea and swim across the Atlantic Ocean. But it wasn't until the middle of the 20th century that the eel's Atlantic journey was discovered. And to this day, the exact spot where they're born has never been found. Whatever, the eels do make it across the Atlantic as tiny little elvers and start swimming their way up the River Bann. I remember myself seeing a great black ribbon, miles long, millions and millions of tiny eels making their way all the way up the river, up to Loch Ness. The rich shallow basin of Loch Ness is perfect habitat for eels. They grow fast there. Fishermen seek them out with nets and with baited lines. But at a certain stage the eels decide it's time to head back to the ocean. They come back down the river and there they're met with the traps at Tuam, Portna and Mavanaher. The eels travelling relentlessly downstream hit these grids known as skis. They're forced into a narrower and narrower V until at the end of the V they run into the net. The net was 22 feet long. It tapered to a point and the end was closed with a skiver made from a chicken leg bone. Iron would rust, wood would rot. The fishermen in small boats called cots would pull the bottom of the net into the boat and empty the contents. Sometimes when the eels were running thick, the net constantly filled up so they never got a chance to close the bottom of the net. It was fishing all the time. The traps landed between 150 and 250 tonnes of eel a year. Sometimes 100 tonnes of that could be taken in just 4 nights. For the eels always run in the darkness, and the filthier and darker the night, the better. Tradition has it the best of the eel fishing was the October darkness. There's always been conflict between the rights of fishermen and the ownership of the fishery. At the start of the 20th century, court cases raged all the way to the House of Lords regarding the eel fishery, but left things unresolved. In the 1960s, there was renewed conflict. Local fishermen, with the support of local priest Father Kennedy, formed a cooperative, which eventually in 1971 took over the ownership of the fishery in the loch and the River Bann traps. They continue to manage the fishery to this day. Catches were always variable, but in the 1980s it was clear something was wrong. Despite the best efforts of the cooperative, the numbers of elvers entering the river started to fall dramatically. Elvers were imported from other rivers, but soon it was clear that they had no elvers either. All across the world, eel populations plummeted. So nobody knows whether once again the eels will teem in their countless thousands in the October darkness.